Hello there, friends, and hello, Kevin. We're going to have two grumpy
Tim?
middle-aged men today talk about migration to Russia and all those issues. Kevin, could you maybe tell us why we decided to do this tonight?
Well, Tim, you're too kind to me. You're a middle-aged guy. I'm a grumpy old man.
Oh, you think?
Um, we decided to do this stream because we uh, found out that we've got people asking Tim questions and then coming to me and saying, Tim said this. And I say, well, I think you misunderstood what Tim said.
Mhm.
Listen to it again. This is what he said. And then they take what I say and they go to Tim and say, well, but Kevin said.
Yeah,
And
it's vice versa. Yeah.
yeah,
hmm So that's the thing is we're going to kind of go in and do a general sort of global um, view of this whole like immigration questions and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to start with tonight. And I think then the number one issue, so that way we don't just have too much preamble before we get into this, is okay. One thing that I just got a message the other day is people are really confused about. Now, with the exception of something very weird, like buying an ultra luxury mansion, which could maybe get you some way around the citizenship game or whatever, but barring some sort of weird program, it goes temporary residency, permanent residency, wrong way, citizenship. Okay, temporary residency, which is a 3 year permit, permanent residency, which is a 5 year permit, and then citizenship. And at the halfway point of both of those permits, you can go to the next stage. So 3 years
correct.
becomes 1.5, 5 years becomes 2.5, so on and so forth. And I would really recommend everyone to do things in that particular order. But dude, I've gotten so many messages where people talk to me, oh, we'll do this and then citizen. No, there is no like easy way to get citizenship. In fact, there's really no easy way to even get temporary residency, especially
Correct.
depending on your region. Now, Kevin, could you tell us some of the specifics that you've maybe heard from other people about trying to live where you live in the Crimea?
Well, I can tell you that Crimea is fairly easy to work with if you go to the Simferopol FMS or immigration office. That's partially because we know everybody there. Um, However, I've heard people saying, gee, I want to move to Sevastopol. It isn't happening. Sevastopol does not have an immigration office and they don't allow foreigners in because it is a military community. It's its own administrative region. So I think you mentioned this on your stream just a couple nights ago, Tim.
Yeah.
It's like Washington, D.C. They make their own laws. They aren't beholden to Crimea. Now, Crimea, sometimes they interpret laws a little differently than the Russian Federation lays the laws out to be.
Yeah.
My experience is this is common in all of the regions. It depends on who's interpreting the law at a
Yeah.
given day.
It's the problem of it being a federal set of laws that are written a bit vaguely, like everything in Russia is, and then interpreted in each state individually and differently. So,
Yep.
and again, one of the other major issues with that, my phone gave a really loud notification despite notifications being turned off. Who's listening to us, Kevin? Uh, but anyways, so the thing is that it might be frustrating because you can literally encounter a completely different system, even though the system is supposed to be universal. And from what I've heard, now that one person here might be listening to me, who's been with us for a while from Krasnodarsky Krai, so the Krasnodar region and around it. Over the years, I've talked to a few foreigners who've lived there. It is always a pain. I don't know what it is about
Yep.
Krasnodar. Well, Sevastopol, you just explained. It's a military town. They don't want you there. Okay, that's simple.
Yep.
But with Krasnodar, I've been told by Russians that it's because it's really diverse in the sense that it's kind of like a meeting place of like Russians and non-Russians and everybody sort of swirling together, and so it's kind of a bit of a hot point. I'm not really sure if that's particularly true, but you never hear a good story from there. And a lot of people also need to understand that, like Kevin was just talking about, is that if you're going to move to this country, you should really, guys, take the time to look at a map. Like, there are a lot of things that people mistake, and I've mentioned this all the time, and yet people always get it wrong, that Moscow, the city, And Moscow, the state, the region around it, are two different entities, just as in Sevastopol
Yep.
and the rest of the Crimea, and also like St. Petersburg and the rest of the Leningrad region that's around St. Petersburg. There's also places like Altai, which there's an Altai ethnic republic, and there's an Altai Krai, which is like the frontier land.
Yep.
And a lot of that stuff people don't seem to get. They also don't seem to get that very often in more, or I should say, in less populated regions, you kind of are really not having a lot of options in terms of where you can go to do your bureaucracy. So you said you have to go to Simferopol, which is in like the middle of the peninsula. Could you do any migration bureaucracy anywhere else, or do you have to go all the way to the middle of the peninsula every time?
We personally take everybody we deal with to the middle of the peninsula every time, simply because they have one building and they do everything there.
Yeah.
They do the quotas, they do the immigration councils, they do the medical exams, they sell you the insurance. You can go to Kerch or to Yalta. Yalta,
so there actually are options.
yeah, Yalta has an FMS office, but
Wow.
they are the absolute worst people in the world to deal with.
Why?
If you want the the views that everyone has of Russians being old, nasty, and grumpy, you go to Yalta. You'll go in, you will stand in line for hours, and they will say, we'll take people from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., which, their lunchtime is from 1 to 2, so it's really 9 to 1.
Yeah.
And then they don't open the door till 10 o'clock. And, at the time that they say they quit taking people, that's it.
Yeah.
If you do get in, you're likely to get a woman yelling and screaming at you.
Yeah. And is the line like the weird Soviet organic line where someone has a piece of paper and you write who's
Yes.
first? Yeah, you have the piece of paper line. Thankfully, in Moscow, they kind of got rid of that. But the compromise is, my friend, is if you haven't noticed, they added a big chunk of the old Moscow region to Moscow. And guess where the only migration office is now? So if someone were to move to Moscow, they could say there's a place called Zelenograd, which is almost like an island of Moscow that sticks out in the northwest. And someone could go there and think, wow, this is so cool because it has the benefits of, if you buy an apartment there, you get all the Moscow benefits and all that stuff. But you're kind of outside the city. That's great. Try getting the migration office from there. It would have to be a 3 to 4 hour journey in one direction on public transport, maybe 3 hours by car. So
Yeah, now in Yalta, we do have electronic ticketing. You can go to the FMS office and you can get an appointment for a particular day and time.
Yeah.
If the machine works.
If it will.
And if they let you in to get the ticket.
Yeah.
And often you will wait longer than if you just go and stand in line.
Gotcha. Okay. And I assume they
Simferopol is wonderful.
And the classic tradition, they never work Wednesdays, do they?
Or
Or do they?
Ours does certain things on each day, Monday through Friday. But it's like 3 hours for registrations on Tuesdays and Fridays, and they do, passports on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Now, there's some people who want to ask us some questions. Well, so, Kevin, you had a few examples. Maybe we should go through our examples first, or would you like to take some calls now? And the question is, I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear them or not, but if you can't hear them, I'll just relay what they had to say to you, because you could definitely hear me.
Okay. Well, I'm going to address a couple of questions I got.
So everyone wants to talk. Hold on. We got some issues. All right. First, we'll go over the big list. Okay. Sorry, I'm in your way. Go, baby.
Yep. So, first off, one issue we had was somebody who contacted both of us asking about being married to a Russian citizen. He's been married to her for about 9 months now. And he got the impression you said he could come and apply for citizenship immediately. Not what you said.
Not citizenship.
Yeah. He came to me and I said, nope, you have to be married for 3 years to apply for citizenship. The good news is, by the time He's coming in like January. By the time you go through the quota, temporary residency, and permanent residency, you will have been married by 3 years already.
Yeah, so even though they got a little bit more merciful with that, with this whole like 3 years to get married thing, which is new by the way,
Yeah.
still, yeah, you're still gonna have to go through the whole ringer of this process. So I don't quite know exactly what that changed per se. Yeah, I think what it did is it probably made it harder to have fictitious marriages, as in maybe you'd get
Yeah.
your your temporary residency with one woman, your permanent residency with a different woman, maybe something like that. I don't know, but yeah, what
Yeah.
you get is you get, and again, people, you get the opportunity, to apply for temporary residency. There's again no guarantees there. It is about the opportunity to apply for temporary residency, and then that gets you through the process without having to worry about immigration quotas. So it doesn't matter how many people get married to a Russian citizen; they all get their sort of equal opportunity to apply.
Actually, if you were married to a citizen, at least in Crimea, you still have to go through the quota process.
Oh, there
But it does
it's
give
still.
you priority on the quota.
Oh, so that's insane. That is okay. So in Moscow, in the Moscow region, that is absolutely not the case. Being married completely excludes you from all that. So that means that
Yeah.
trying to move to Crimea must be a nightmare. How big is the quota? Do you have any idea, or is it a mystery?
70 a year.
70.
70.
Holy crap!
And they have bunches of people who apply, and the ones that get them are number one, people with direct relatives. So if you're married to a Russian woman, if you
Yeah.
have parents, if you have children over the age of 18.
Yeah.
I have heard this question often, people saying, well, I'm married to a woman and she has, young children, so
Yeah.
I qualify. Nope, they have to be 18 or over.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing is, I don't know. Maybe because the Crimea is such a sensitive location, maybe they do it that way so that they have some immigration, but they really, really FSB filter you. Is that a
Oh, yeah.
possibility?
Oh, yes, they do. And if they tell you it will take 4 months for a decision, they take 4 months to the day.
Oh, yeah,
And
that is one thing that's weird. Here, too, that's the one thing where they're very respectful. Like, if they tell you, come back in 3 months, they'll give you a little piece of paper with that day. And if you come back on that day, everything will be ready. That is so weird.
and if you come back a day early, they'll tell you, has it been that long yet?
That's the weird thing, because like everything with like you mentioned about the crazy lines and everything else is nuts and they're rude, but when it comes to you picking up your documents, they are militant to the minute about it and completely fair. It's absolutely bizarre, but that is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So the other one I wanted to address was bank accounts. Somebody I was talking to about an hour or so ago, they were told that you cannot open a bank account unless you're registered to an address. You can't do it if you're registered to a hotel. Reality is Peter Fronwein came to Crimea. He went to Mongolia, crossed the Mongolia-Russia border, went to Irkutsk with our buddy Dan.
Yeah.
Stayed there for a couple of weeks, never registered. Just so people know, you are required to register within 7 days wherever you're going to stay if you're going to be there for more than 7 days.
Yeah, you're supposed to, but I don't know. Well, the thing is, I would say they don't check much, but there's a war on. So you kind of have the war with the heightened reality. Under normal circumstances, they really don't check that.
Yeah.
Unless you get in trouble.
So, yeah. So anyway, Tim.
No.
Peter, he was in Irkutsk. He went to Alpha Bank. They asked him for his U.S. passport, proof of his address in the United States, a driver's license, and his social security number. He did not have to show them his card. Some banks do ask for it.
No.
People ask why. Well, we had or have, or I don't know the state of it, but a tax treaty with the United States. My understanding is that's ended, but they will still ask you for it. And you can open a bank account.
Yeah.
No problem.
So that could also provide a major problem depending on how that whole thing works out in the future for me and Kevin, because we could actually be sort of forced into a sort of debt because I can't send money to the federal government in the United States. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to work, or if we're still living overseas and it doesn't count. So we'll see next year. I would really not like to cancel my American citizenship, but if I'm going to have to pay, $10,000 or $20,000 a year just for the privilege to never be able to go back to America in all likelihood, I can't afford it.
Yeah, in fact, I can tell you that when I filed my taxes this year,
Yeah.
I had a sizable chunk of money due back to me.
Yeah.
And the IRS first came and said, well, we're reviewing your return.
Yeah.
And then they said, you will get a letter in the mail. And that was the end of it. So they've kept my considerable chunk of money. It was 14 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And, no deposited into my bank account or anything. So I think that whole deal is already over for us.
I see. I guess it is. Well, then, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, So, well, we'll see. I mean, that's kind of your destiny here when you move to Russia. You kind of have to, yeah. So,
welcome to our life.
Because in the past, I tried to sort of maximize some of my vacation time, and if you spend 36 days or more on the territory of the United States, you're a tax resident of the United States, and that means you automatically owe them federal taxes, unlike when you're living overseas. You're not supposed to be a tax resident. So this is one of those weird ones because still, by the law of like the tax residency thing, neither of us would still be tax residents of America, but they could just want to do it to punish everyone who's here. So who knows?
Yep.
But
yeah.
But there's also then the ironic part is there's also now no real mechanism that someone could annul their American citizenship to get out of this either, because that's also vanished into the past. But anyways, you had some other situations about citizenship you wanted to talk about and bureaucracy.
Yeah. So don't expect any help from the U.S. Embassy in Moscow.
Yeah, that's what I was just mentioning. They've gone in complete skeleton crew mode, and they will only answer what they consider to be an emergency. And again, it's what they consider to be an emergency.
Yeah, they do not take appointments for emergency passports anymore or anything. So,
yeah. So once you're here, let's just say this: the war continues on to the foreseeable future. You might never be able to get a new passport ever.
Yeah.
Because you can't really get anything sent here, especially things that are important. Which means I have no driver's license. Sad face. So.
You can fly to Poland to do your business, but they are not very friendly with us either.
Yeah, especially Poland. Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not in the mood to try to help out the American expat community in Russia. That is not something that they're probably very interested in. Although Russian people are weird and sometimes naive. I actually just was on a TV show today talking about that, so I think a lot of Russians probably try to do that, but no one cares. One thing I also wanted to mention is not about... but one problem I've kind of had is I don't mind, trying to explain to people about like how to buy land and stuff in Russia. But I always feel like people, they really do not listen to what I have to say. And like number one about land, and we're going to get to the American Village. There are some American Village issues that are real big. But just while I'm on this topic it's like you cannot buy farmland. You cannot buy, there's sort of two things. One is things in Russia are cheap, which means I can buy this mega whatever for like 50 grand and I'm going to live like a god. And that is not the case. Your housing money does go way farther in Russia, but things here aren't free. Like someone even was telling me once, they were like, I refuse to live on less than 30 acres of land. But I also want a 2-hour drive to a specific church. One specific church, which happens to be in downtown Moscow. So that's a 2-hour drive to downtown. Nothing.
Not happening.
First off, stuff like options like that don't even really exist. There's very few things that are that big. And then when they are, it's going to be millions of dollars. Because, it's like, it would be like buying a ranch. What's somewhere that's famous around New York? Like, I don't know, like outside of, like that freaking islip. And it's like buying a ranch on Long Island.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you
Not
can't do
happening,
it.
right.
So that was one thing where I think people didn't quite get that, and the other one is that a lot of people, I tell them that they have to be really cautious about buying stuff, and they really need to kind of look at the details, because if something's cheap, there's probably something wrong with it. Oh my God! Like one Indian gentleman who used to, well, maybe he gave up on his dream of Russia. He used to write me like, "Oh my God, Tim, I found this apartment, and it's right by Moscow, and it's 500,000 rubles, which is like nothing. It's less than the cost of a car." I'm like, "There's a reason, because
Yep.
it was actually like a basement that was listed as like commercial real estate, but had a couch in it." And like, one of the things is someone could say, well, what does that matter? Why can't we just buy this awesome cheap basement and I'll start my life there and I can sell the basement to someone else? Because you can't register there. It's not a real address. It's not a real
Yep.
place of residency. And as a foreign person, you need that. Like, if you're going to come to Russia and you're going to do something for your future, you really need to buy a place to live. Because if you buy a place where you can't live in the government's opinion of live. Because remember, in Russia, it's about the government's opinion. This isn't like some sort of like organic process. It's very regimented. You're just going to be wasting your money, and you just paid, I don't know, $20,000 or $30,000 for this weird piece of commercial real estate that gives you nothing. Absolutely nothing, except possibly a lot of headaches, because there's nothing saying that basement is even a real, true, even commercial piece of real estate. Who knows? Maybe later the government will be like, and they'll be like, this basement was never designed for anything at all. How'd this happen? And you'll just be like, I don't know. You also can't buy farmland. Foreign people can't buy farmland. So that way foreign people can't buy up Russia's resources. We can only buy up resources that are sort of given for human space and usage. Stuff for the animals and the oil and the minerals and the trees and all that, foreign people can't buy. Well, until they get citizenship, then they can go nuts. But you see,
Well, you also cannot buy land in Crimea or
mm-hmm,
any border region. They have a complete list. There's
mm-hmm.
186 regions that you cannot own land in as a foreigner.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
border regions. That's right. It's what, 30
yep.
kilometers to the border.
Sochi,
Yeah.
well, yeah, all of Crimea, Sochi, it actually varies by the different regions as to whether
Yeah.
it's 30 kilometers or not.
Well, in a lot of places in Russia that are, let's just say, less popular than the Crimea, you actually have a sub-border. So say we were by
Yeah.
Finland. When we get to about 30 kilometers to Finland, you'll actually get to a border checkpoint, which is internal to Russia, and they'll be like, oh, okay, you're approaching the border with Finland. Could you please present Russian identification? Like they, even as a foreigner, even just sort of going there is kind of
Yep.
questionable, and you need a special permission. So yeah, that whole border region, depending on the region, depending on how they define it, could also be a real killer. Unfortunately, see, Kevin, see, you're used to that because you're down there by one. When you're around the Moscow
Yeah.
region, obviously you're deep into the interior of the country, and no one thinks about that. But
Right.
you do encounter it when you travel around, especially
Yep.
around Finland, around Mongolia, around China, and North Korea, and all that. It's definitely a real
Yeah.
phenomenon. So,
Anywhere near the Black Sea.
okay.
Sochi, that whole region up along Georgia.
Yeah. Now, let's get into the misconceptions about the American village, because there have been a bunch of them. And I think one person has already started to something a little bit on the dangerous side. And I really hope they're listening. And I hope maybe we can give this video to them later and that they'll listen to the whole thing. But anyways, what is the situation?
Well, some of the things people seem to think that they're just going to, plop some money into the village
Yeah.
and they're going to show up and start building a house. Um, and what I always tell them is they need to contact you, but they're kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Um, I know somebody that's sitting in a neighboring country waiting to come here in January and start building. And my understanding is that that's not going to happen.
Oh no, Kevin, I just noticed something muted me. Oh no, I hope I didn't ruin the live stream. How long have I been muted for? Oh no, Kevin, did I screw everything up? And I
I
can
don't
hear
know.
you now. Failed. Oh no. Well, the thing is that my microphone, well, the recording should still be good. I guess that's the important thing, but
Yep.
Oh no! I hope we didn't ruin this whole thing for you guys. So, anyways, could you guys let us know in the comments? Did I just f this thing completely up? Because I swore that I hit the thing to let us talk, or did I hit it again somehow? Uh oh, some people are typing. Hold on, Kevin. Did I screw up the whole thing? Well, regardless, the recording is going to be fine because the recording doesn't require Telegram.
Yep.
Yes,
Right.
you did screw it up, and no one said anything. Amazing. All right.
Well, it's just because you're so good looking.
Well, okay. Well, that means that, anyways. Well, I don't know how to handle this. We're gonna, I guess, have to go forward with this, and then people can listen to the recording later. So, anyways, let's
Yep.
talk then about the American village. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah, my understanding is coming in January isn't going to work. Um, I have another couple that I hope they will be watching this as well, who are planning to sell everything. They're in the process of selling their business, their home. They're going to pack them and their 3 kids up and move to Russia
yeah,
with the hopes of getting a quota somewhere or the village or renting something, homeschooling their children in the meantime. And I just want to make sure people know that Russia doesn't recognize homeschooling. So
well, there is homeschooling in Russia, but
it's different. Yeah.
yeah, it's well, you have to meet the Russian governmental standards about it. That's what something you'd want to talk to. Wow, Father Joseph's really overwhelmed, but that's what Father Joseph does, and a lot of people up
Yeah.
there. Well, also one of the friends of my kid, one of his buddies, his mom actually chooses to do that, but not for religious reasons, for quality reasons. But anyways, so yeah, it's you have
But
to.
she has to meet the standards.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
essentially, yeah, you're going to have to teach your kids, especially somehow they're going to have to get exposed to the Russian language, and there's going to be a bunch of other stuff that's sort of part of it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
And and they will need to learn Russian to go to the actual schools and study,
yeah,
unless they go to a private, American language school.
yeah, which is a lot of money and pretty much only in Moscow. So,
Right.
yeah. But you can, I mean, you can do this whole like homeschool your kids on the range thing, but you obviously have to do it the right way. You
Yeah.
really have to follow their rules. Anyways, now that my embarrassment level is starting to sink from making so many mistakes, I just like to tell people that can now actually hear me, but don't worry, because in the recording you'll be able to hear everything. That you please, this is another thing where in America, when people make agreements within America, within the United States, in like terms of business and that, they keep them. And in Russia, agreements for Russian foreign policy, they do, which is weird. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
If Russia, the country, makes an agreement, it counts. If it's something internal, promises and agreements don't mean shit. And I know a lot of people don't
Paper
like
is
that I
worth
swear,
more than what's
but
written on
yeah,
it. Yeah.
it is. That contract's worth as good. It's as good as a piece of toilet paper, and that's the same thing with the American village. Until we actually get this thing in our name, break ground, and all that stuff, it's just an idea. Until that happens, okay? I have some big meetings with big investors coming up, and so I appreciate that a lot of people have been kind of writing me with some suggestions about how to solve it, but they're all in this extremely American paradigm, and it's like you can't do Russian bureaucracy the American bureaucracy way. And although I left the United States as a fairly young man, I've come back. I've had my kids go to school a bit in America and all that stuff. I've had to deal with what's it's called, Obamacare and all that. And guys, when you sit down with the American bureaucracy, say for Obamacare, like they don't care if your handwriting's bad. I've even apologized. I'm like, look, I don't write very good. Can you read this? Ah, it's fine, whatever. And if you put your salary in front of them, right? And remember, I have a Russian salary, and I have my tax declaration and all that. But they're like, oh, you okay? They assume you're telling the truth. Whereas in Russia, it's more like being on trial. They assume you're lying, and you have to prove that you're actually submitting something real to them. It's totally different. And some sort of thing of like, again, I don't want to diss on anyone, but I just got here. Let me open it because again, I'm not dissing on this person. It's the person wrote with the absolute like best of intentions, but it's just not a viable answer. Let me no, that's not it. Where is it, baby? Why is the American village taking so long? Let's see. So future personal town village. Hold on. I think it's because I already looked at it. So Tim, if you position this project as sort of ideological, you probably contact some ideologically Russian motivated investors. Konstantin Malafeyev being a good example. So this is part one of this. This is a lot of the stuff I get about suggestions to the village. I should contact rich, patriotic Russians. You don't think I've been doing that from day one? That's issue number one. Just ready to be blah, blah, blah. Also, promoting your project with Russia Day, Sputnik, and similar propagandist media is a good idea. You don't think that I've been doing that?
Yeah.
Next, and this is, you know what, Kevin, this is surprisingly can be very demotivating. Visiting Moscow region with the governor Vorobyov may also be a good idea. Who, in theory, signed off on the whole thing that would, if people started living there, they could get around the immigration quota? It was Governor Vorobyov himself with his own pen. Man.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and
you could
it or not,
just kill. Yeah, hold on. We're not done.
Okay.
Most of the investors in Russia will invest nothing until they feel some political support from the key and local administrative persons. I guess this is probably a Russian person talking, because Russians love to give advice that's really obvious. Visiting major regional agriculture and rural development exhibitions and making statements during some panels. So essentially go speak at conferences about this. I've spoken about this at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum that's covered by news media from across the world that attracts so many thousands of people, from Arab sheikhs to the richest leaders of Africa and the Chinese Communist Party and all this stuff. And also blah, blah, blah. And after all, we both know that in Russia, 2 to 3 million is the equivalent price of a basic Chinese car in Russia. It's not a big deal. Then give it to me.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. So again, that was just a really, really sort of what typical one that I think came from the way it's worded. Although the English is very good, it really gives off the sort of the Russia logic, which is, I guess, something a lot of people also have to get used to when they're living here. That's the way that things work. So, but anyways,
yeah.
So about the American villages is people cannot, because until we break ground, you cannot put your chips down on this. And so whoever this is in Georgia, like, you should be working with an immigration lawyer to come up with some plan ASAP about just how you're going to do this. Be it Timur, my buddy, be it someone else, but you have to come up with some sort of plan or some sort of strategy to do this. Especially because some regions are ridiculous. Like, you would think the Novgorod region, so not Nizhny Novgorod, the more famous one, Veliki Novgorod,
yep. That's
really kind of empty. And I think, unfortunately, it's empty because during World War II, a lot of people there got killed. So it's very empty for very, very, very sad reasons. Their migration quota is even worse than yours. Early in the video, which people probably didn't hear, you have 70. They have 20. 20 people a year can immigrate there. So, that's one thing where you'd think you could go to Novgorod and you'd think they'd be willing to welcome you with open arms, and probably the population would be. Heck, a lot of the people in the government might even be. But when it comes down to 20 people, there's enough people who live there that their cousin from especially with the crisis in Ukraine, that their cousin comes up or something. They just, yeah. So anyways, it's really, really really frustrating, and also very scary, because one thing, Kevin, I've been telling people is you can, if you have the opportunity to come to Russia by some mechanism, don't wait for the American village to do it. But I will never tell you, sell everything you have and just come here. That's no. I did that when I was in my early 20s, because I had nothing. So first off, nothing. So I had nothing to lose. Secondly, the visa it was all easier back then. It was a lot softer, a lot easier. And I know Father Gleason sort of tells people to sort of put their faith in God and come here. If you do that, you should go live in the region he does, because he has the rapport with the local government that they can maybe slowly get you in the church and then slowly acquaint you with the local government. And then maybe over time they might be like, okay, we'll let you live here. But you still have to do all the paperwork.
Yeah.
All of it. You have to have all those birth certificates and the notarized and the background. You have to get all that done. In fact, as someone who got their citizenship through a presidential signature, you still have to provide all the paperwork.
Yep.
There you go.
And unlike you, when you came, like you say, young, single guy, worst thing could happen is if they told you to go away, that you can't stay here,
Yeah.
you could have gotten on a plane easily and gone anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you sell everything you have in the United States, for example, you load you, your wife, your kids on a plane, you fly to Russia, put stuff on a boat to ship it here, and you don't get a quota, you don't have a plan to stay here some other way,
Yeah.
you may find you, your wife, and kids, marched out of the border somewhere with nowhere to go.
Yeah. Well,
This is why
we
I've
can
heard,
deport you to the United States for free on a cargo plane or something.
yeah. And I've heard you tell people this, and I tell people this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're married, you want to bring your family, at least the guy should get on a plane, come over, start doing some of the legwork, finding things out on a tourist visa, make the decisions about where you want to live, what your plan is, go back, and then bring your family.
Yeah, and one thing too is as someone who's had some successes and some failures in Russian business, this really applies that generally, especially outside of the Moscow, which is kind of like a mini America halfway. Everyone who lives outside of Moscow, like for those of you who want to live in a place with a lot more trees and all that stuff, everything is about interpersonal relationships and this stuff. I want to say the problem is I was going to say it's like the mafia, but the mafia also implies like killing and murder. But it's more about like the understanding between the dons and the capos and the bosses and I forget what the term is for the lowest guys on the something like the administrators or something, like the absolute lowest guys. It's really about that like rapport, because when I talked to a few people about the American Village, I said, well, look, we have some construction workers from America. Like one of the responses from a couple people was like, we could probably find a way to employ them somehow. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It's probably going to be semi-illegal. But they want to meet you. They want to meet the person. They want to kind of build the rapport. And the problem is, again, people don't understand that. Like, no one is going to just say default, this person, first, middle, and last name, born year. This person needs a construction job, and they want to work with you semi-legally. No one is going to do it. When you kind of get to know the person, they'll be like, oh, okay, we see you're kind of doing this, but you don't have the language skills. Okay, maybe we can work something out, and that's just the thing about Russia is everything has to be done organically, and you have to have so many face-to-face only meetings for no reason. Like
Everything is about who you know.
And the face-to-face meeting. You cannot about any sort of interesting or major issue or whatever. And this is another thing that I didn't mention in the video about why the village is taking so long. But although, of course, I appreciate having the, time, some of these meetings that I've had to have with investors, they were during summer. So it's like, okay, come 3 hours to meet me and we'll talk for 15 minutes and go 3 hours back, because everything has to be face to face. So,
and then you're lucky if they're actually there to talk to you.
No, thankfully, no. Thankfully, no, I haven't
You
had
didn't get
that.
that?
That hasn't happened. No. Everyone was very respectful. But again, it's you got to go to them and various things. And even in my business dealings around Moscow, you can never just sort of like do something. It always has to be it has to be sort of arranged face to face in advance. So, anyways, besides our thing of like, only come to Russia if you have a plan, and what you mentioned, and you should scout Russia first before you sell your stuff. And also, like what I said is the American Village isn't a thing until we break ground. It is just an idea until the day comes where I can put a shovel in the ground and build it. Because I've had a couple people, they've been like, well, here, why don't you write the letter of invitation from the American Village? The American Village is a field. The field cannot invite you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or, Tim, could you please register me at the American Village? The village is still a field, which is registered as farmland.
Has to have a physical address, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I'd love to, but I can't. Well, could you do something on behalf of the village? Even if the village will say, let's just say it was successful. Let's say, I could create tomorrow a legal entity for myself as an individual entrepreneur in Russia. So I could create a micro business within 24 hours. That micro business couldn't invite anybody.
Yeah.
About people who could invite you are probably like the companies that do English teaching. They can do all that because they've done it before. Universities certainly usually if they have foreign students, they have a special department that's used to it. Russia Today also has an entire department to deal with foreign people because obviously not everyone here speaks fluent Arabic, right? So there are organizations that can do that, but they tend to be bigger and more powerful. Someone who could write you an invitation letter to come here on one of those like private visas is someone who owns the address where you would be staying. So that's another thing. So it's like someone even asked, they're like, Tim, well, you own your home or something. Why don't you invite me? I'm like, well, then you'd have to live in my weird pink house that has no heating and no toilet. You know, like stuff like that, you know? So.
Well, and people need to understand that the private visa invitation letter is usually for to be issued by good friends or relatives.
Yeah.
Now, my wife and I have are issuing one for Peter because he has to leave the country.
Yeah.
Because he's on a tourist visa, get a private visa and come back in before Crimea will allow him to apply for temporary residency.
Yeah. Oh,
now, but what people need to understand, we're not related to Peter. So he could go to an embassy in another country and they say, this isn't, it's not a relative. It's not somebody you have close ties to. So you now have to go to, what's the organization that can issue invitation letters for people? Now,
Ooh, you mean like one of those like visa company sort of things or
no, there's a government agency in Russia. I'll have to look it
that
up.
Specifically deals with that. Sorry, I don't remember.
Yeah,
I've actually never done one of those visas
something to
myself.
deal with the foreign ministry.
I see. Yeah, and that's again, like you mentioned. Yet it's also important to say that is really again designed for friends and family. And in the past, again, generally the police haven't checked on things, but because the war is on,
Right.
If they check and you are not there, you're in trouble, and the person who invited you is in trouble, theoretically. So,
yeah, because whoever registers you go out and you cause trouble. Yeah. They're coming to that person's house looking for you, and you best be there, and it'll be both of your butts.
Yeah, that's why I would also really say that if you were to try to skirt the rules, you should probably put up some nice pictures of yourself at the residence, leave some of your personal belongings at that address, so that when they come looking, they're like, oh, well, his shirts are here, or something like that, or there's pictures of him on the wall, he's got to be here. Something like that, to sort of block your trail. But one thing I also wanted to mention, Kevin, is I guess in some ways these are kind of like one of the things where I think I failed to explain to people that like a lot of the men who listen to us, I try to also tell them, though this might, you might get into the sort of the weird zone, but I tell them that, like, look, especially for people who are Eastern Orthodox Christian, okay, can you be an Eastern Orthodox Christian man and just spend your whole life not being married? No. You're going to get married anyways. You're going to have a family anyways. Why not try to meet someone here and try to make those bonds and do that, because that's the only way you can sort of get here. And again, marriage can be mutually beneficial, especially if you, try to meet up with some sort of Yelena whose husband's dead and she's in the middle of nowhere. You come and she has that defense. She has someone who's going to try to do their best to provide, and then she could take care of you, and you build that, family structure there. But for some reason, it's like, no, I can't get married. Oh, no. I don't know what it is, this terror of, especially from people who claim to be Orthodox. So if you were like some sort of like really militant atheist, that's more ideologically consistent, because you're like, I don't believe in any of this stuff. I'm going to do what I want and enjoy life as much as I can while I'm alive. Okay, if that's your position, cool. But if you come at this from this like traditionalist, I want to live in a country that has more traditional values, then wife. Like, I don't, that's another thing I don't get from people, because really the only reliable means to immigrate here that's been since I've been here, since you've been here, since marriage. Really the beginning of modern Russia is through marriage. That's it. There's kind of no other real easy mechanism that you don't inherit from birth.
And on that, guys in their late 50s, early 60s do not come here with the attitude of, I'm going to find some 20-year-old Russian woman to marry. It's not going to happen. And I'm saying this because I've got a few of them who have contacted me and said, "Can you guys hook me up with a 20-year-old?"
No,
No.
that was in 1990. That was when well, here, okay. So why again, we have to think is this is one of the problems that a lot of people they don't think logically about relationships is they have to understand that well, in the 1990s when a lot of people were literally starving, well, I guess a 60-year-old guy with money starts to look good. And
Yep.
now Russian women have a lot more, let's just say, choice. And there's no starvation. And like I even mentioned, because I've actually had, because the American Village, a few lonely women write to me to sort of introduce them to some guy. But they're not hot 20-year-old like models. They're more women who generally their husband is dead. You know,
Well,
because that's the real issue. They're like, my husband's dead, and I've got kids, and I'm alone. Okay, they're certainly attractive, but they're not this weird like fantasy situation. It's more like if the husband would be 50 or 60, they could probably snag a woman who's maybe I don't know 40 or 45 or something like that. Because yeah,
yeah. And in fact, right on the edge, we've got somebody that my wife introduced to one of her students.
yeah,
He's 62. She's 35. She's interested in him,
yeah,
but it's what you said. Her husband died of a heart attack.
yeah.
And, she's looking for companionship. He's looking for butterflies in his stomach. Ain't
Yeah.
going to happen.
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, and again, going back to then my age, right? So 40, the sort of exact middle of the road there. With a lot of women and men, if you are 40 and like single, there's a reason. Like, and for women, it's husband is dead or there was some sort of divorce. It generally means in Russia, thank goodness, unless they were born in Moscow, they definitely have kids. And so that's just the thing is, if you're 50 or 60 years old and you're coming to Russia and you want to meet a woman, you will, but she's gonna have kids. I don't know what age they're going to be. You know, there's difference. There could be, let me just put it this way. Women around my age, sometimes they have 18-year-old kids, and sometimes they have 3 and 4-year-old kids. So,
Yep.
but on the same time, you get in this weird, selfish Western thing of, but what if I get divorced? She'll take all my stuff. All the stuff you own before the marriage you keep. That's the difference between Russia and America. So if you're
Yep.
really paranoid, okay, if you're maybe Eastern Orthodox Christian, but you're also paranoid, and you come here and you buy an apartment, and then you get married, she can't touch it. There's nothing she
Right.
could do with any lawyers or any trickery. It's all before the marriage. Everything during the
That's
marriage
the
is
law.
divided 50
Yes.
50. Of course, sometimes it's impossible to really divide something 50 50 when one person doesn't really make any money. But that's an issue for another day. But that's also an issue for the other guys who are sort of flat broke. It's like, okay, you're flat broke and you want to come here, and she's got to be smoking hot and 20, no kids, but you offer nothing. And you've got no money.
Yep.
It's like, well, what are you worried about getting divorced? You have no money. Like, what do you lose? You lose nothing. So I don't get this. This is another thing where I try to like explain to people, and they're just very much, again, I want to leave the West, but I'm going to be very Western about my relationships.
Yep.
Don't get it. So, anyways, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Kevin, before we get into the Q&A part of this?
I don't think so. Did I mention that you can buy property in cash here?
Oh yeah, you did
This,
not mention that. Yes, yes, that was one.
yeah,
Remember, friends, I believe the Russian Constitution actually states that all transactions in Russia could be in another currency, but you must accept rubles and kopecks.
yeah,
So there is, in fact, it's from a legal definition standpoint, you cannot deny payment in Russia in Russian money. So there you go.
yeah. I have gone. When we bought our first apartment here, 60,000 U.S. dollars. It was
Yeah,
sold in U.S. dollars, but I had to go to the bank with, at the time it was what 12 million rubles.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh boy.
In cash.
Yeah, yeah.
You go to the bank, you stuff it in a paper bag, you carry it on the bus with you to the notary, and you hand it over.
Oh yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Well, yeah, that was like the one of the most terrifying, like 100 meters. Bought. I took a loan out from VTB Bank to buy the second house, and I had to march it to Spare Bank. Thankfully, I found a VTB and a Spare Bank that were right next to each other. But that was sort of like the march of terror as you have an entire bag, this huge bag of money, and you have to walk 100 yards from the one bank to the other. But I don't know. Thankfully, in Russia, you don't get a lot of muggings and stuff. I mean, bad stuff happens here like anywhere, but, well, during the middle of the day, not so much. But, yeah. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and you've already warned people about this, but I want to repeat it again. We actually got caught up in this. Mm-hmm. When you buy something here, research it.
Yeah.
Get yourself a real estate lawyer to look at everything. Yeah. We bought an apartment, beautiful, gorgeous apartment, paid good money for it, but it turned out that the apartments were built on land that weren't owned by the people selling the apartments in the building. Mm-hmm. As such, the water wasn't legal, the electric wasn't legal. We went to a real estate lawyer and said, what should we do? And he said, sell it as quickly as you can. Yeah. And we did.
And if you guys want to talk to a real estate lawyer, I bought my first house and my second house and my apartment all through the same person and never got screwed over once. So I'd be happy to give you her contact information, and she'd be happy to help you, I'm sure. So, and she works surprisingly cheap. Don't tell her. She really lowballs the price she works for. So, almost criminal.
I have a Tatar guy we work with the same way, and if you come to Crimea, we'll hook you up with him and a good notary.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Very cool. So anyways, I think now might be the time for to take calls. I don't know when Kevin has to leave. I burn out in about 90 minutes of live streaming, so we have about 40 minutes left maximum. Chantel wanted to talk, but now she took her hand down. So Chantel, you're on the air whether you like it or not, because I'd like finally a female voice. During the last 3 live streams, it's been all dudes. So hello, Chantel. Do you want to talk? Okay.
Hello?
Oh, wow, that's a little farther away from the microphone. Kevin, do you hear her?
I do not.
Oh, boy. Well, she'll talk and I'll relay the message. Okay. Can you be brief, Chantel?
Yeah, we've all had issues with listening to Kevin, so you're really loud and he's really quiet.
Okay.
A lot of sound issues there with you guys today. We missed, of course, 20 minutes of your messages that you guys were talking about.
We're going to upload this later, and the upload will have everything for sure, because in OBS, everything is a lot more obvious. So, but did you have a question?
No, that was basically it, but I'm sure I could come up with a question. So a lot of people, I guess I am getting a lot of conflict about, things that, the migration issue and coming over there. And our situation, you both do. And so I guess we've heard, hey, just get on over here and work it out when you get here. And then we hear, don't get rid of everything. And, we can't just, a lot of people that are on your channel.
Okay, so hold on. Stop. We're going to have a brief moment. So you're saying that some people are telling you to come to Russia, and so just drop everything and come to Russia. And Kevin and I have been telling you not to. So who are the people telling you to just drop everything and just go to Russia on a whim?
I think at one point you had actually said yourself, Tim, just get over here and we'll work out, you guys will work out whatever the issues are when you get here. Now, we're getting all our paperwork in order or whatnot, and I think everybody who's on your channel is going to learn to do all that before coming. But
well, I've definitely told you what I told a lot of people is that if you have the opportunity to somehow get here and actually start this process, don't wait for the American village. If you have the opportunity to do it and to build some sort of plan. But again, like some people who just think that they can just come here and start living here on like tourist visas forever with no real documents and all that, you have to do this in an intentional way. So yeah, absolutely. In some ways you do want to sort of pick up the pace and get here, but not if you're just going to do it like randomly and sort of with a hope and a prayer, So, but anyways.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people, whether they're waiting for the village or not, and I could be speaking for just us, but I believe from what I'm hearing and reading from other people too is they want to get there, buy a home and file for quota.
Well, yeah, but that can't happen until we get the village all completely organized and all completely ready, and that's nowhere close because, as I mentioned in the most recent live stream, we are really not. We don't have the money to do it, but I have some meetings with more investors. As if one bites, we could be good to go. And if not, we might have to do something like gather money from individuals, which I really, 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 really super do not want to do at all. But we might be forced to. So let's see if we can. So let's see. I have one super major meeting on Thursday or something. Thursday or Friday. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. So it's coming up real soon. So hopefully that'll work. But anyways,
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
I have a special person here who'd like to say something quickly.
All right. Someone wants to say something. Hello.
Hey Tim, can you make more travel videos?
More travel videos. We're doing as best.
Yeah, I love them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Motivates me to keep going. They should be released. Something should be released every Thursday, I think. But anyway,
That was one of our sons.
much appreciated. All right, guys. I'm gonna let you go. Okay, the mute is on. Sorry, Kevin. You're probably a little lost here. Anyways, let's see. But that was very, very, very pleasant. But anyways, that was again this whole thing about should we drop everything and come and not. And again, this is the thing where it's like we got to work with that immigration lawyer because there are sort of ways to get around this. Like everyone's favorite barber, Teddy Boy Greg, was able to come here on that whole thing of like I'm gonna set up a business and employ myself. That's one way to do it. Some people do the trickeration of kind of coming as a student, and that's why you kind of really need to talk to one of these immigration lawyers. But yeah. Anyways, let's see.
Yeah. So actually, I'm hearing the questions now because I joined the chat. I hear two of you, so if I sound okay, we're okay.
You sound amazing, so that's good.
Okay.
All right. The next person who had a question was Sam Oak, was next in line, and there's two more people after him. So hi, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Kevin. I got your email, Kevin. I replied to it. Sorry. I think I misspoke when I was on your show last time, Tim. Anyway, I'll figure it out, the immigration stuff. I am married to a Russian citizen, and we're wondering two things. One, can I come and she buy a plot of land and I build a home with her on it? That's not going to be like an employment issue.
Well, let me jump in. Yeah, she, as a Russian citizen, absolutely can buy land. But the question again is, what is the land zoned as? Okay? If she buys dacha land, she can build a house on it. If she buys what's called IJS, which is a single family residence, she can do that, right? If it's farmland, you can't build houses on farmland, okay? So it really depends on what type of land, but Russian citizens, can buy whatever the hell they want, okay? So she can do that.
Gotcha.
And then you could start building a house on it. In theory, the thing is, most Russians just build their house the way they want to, so you don't really have to worry too much about permits. You're probably supposed to, but no one cares.
Okay. Second question is, maybe Kevin can answer this. How do we currently, under the circumstances, send a container worth of, building tools and, our life, our possessions? How do we get our possessions there? Do we go through Vladivostok right now, or Sakhalin, or is there a way to St. Petersburg, or maybe through South Korea first? Or, I don't know. I'll take my hands off the air.
Yeah, being somebody who actually looked into this when I was coming over here, and it was much simpler then. It's quite expensive to get a shipping container. If you can't fill the whole thing, you're going to be waiting for the whole thing to be filled. It takes several months to get here. Now, with the special military operation going on, it's almost impossible to get a container here without spending $7,000, $8,000, $10,000. So my suggestion to you, with all that equipment and stuff, sell it, come here, buy it. That stuff is pretty cheap here.
One thing I would also like to add to that, we're gonna mute Sam just in case. We'll let you have your say, Sam. But is that, remember, you mentioned tools. Well, the thing is, your tools are probably geared for American electricity, right? So, I mean, you'd probably have to come here and buy stuff, and I'm not sure, like, say you have something like an international brand like Makita. If you come here and buy Makita batteries, I'm not sure, are they exactly the same batteries as in the United States? Or maybe they're a little different, you see what I mean? So, like, I know
They actually
tools are,
have two versions of them because I own a couple of Makita tools,
yeah.
and they both use different batteries.
Oh, well then see there you go. So in a lot of ways, a lot of electronics from America don't work here. Of course, what does work internationally? Telephones, because they're designed for travel. Anything that's sort of like USB based, because it's USB, which is universal. So that's telephones. Your generally most modern notebook computers, usually you can use them wherever, pending you get the right plug.
Yep.
Of course, the American plug doesn't work here, but you get a different plug, like a Mac one. With the Mac, the actual thing that's like changes the current from the wall is the block, and then you just change the plug that's on the block, and it'll work in any country. Of course,
Yep.
some computers are weird, and they have the block, which is an integral part of the cord, which means you have to get a cord that has the same type of block, but has the European plug. So that could be a little bit harder if you have some sort of El Cheapo notebook
Actually,
computer.
those are pretty easy to get too. Ozone is your friend.
Okay.
Ozone.ru.
Oh, Ozone, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good one. But that's for someone who's a little bit more tech savvy than I am. So, well, just one thing in general is pretty much with a lot of electronics, besides ones that are designed to be used for travel and stuff, they're kind of useless here. Yeah.
And
So, even
and you
stuff,
know,
yeah.
I bought my Makita drill in the United States. It was almost $300. Here, it was $100.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, tools aren't too bad here, especially now with the bad exchange rate in dollars. You'll find that tools are sort of pleasantly affordable. So, yeah. But anyways, Sam, I said I'd give you the chance to speak. You're back on the air. Was there something else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, we're just kind of blue skying like different regions. I'd like to know, her my wife's father
Wait,
is in
Sam, let
St.
me stop
Petersburg.
you. I'm going to be a bit of a jerk here, and I'm going to stop you right there because you're looking at different regions. Now, remember, this is about successfully immigrating. Do you understand that you're going to need to have an immigration lawyer to accompany you when you're going through the immigration process? So, if you pick somewhere like the Altaisky Krai, like the Altai frontier, you're going to have to try to find some sort of immigration lawyer there who can get the job done. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So
Something
we
to
need
think about.
guidance, obviously. Yeah, we need guidance. We're not trying to be too stubborn or anything, but
No.
we'd like to know some options of places where we could set up a nice cattle ranch. And I don't know. I guess Crimea. I think Kevin said there's some farming areas in the north. But yeah, we're just kind of trying to find out where to pick our location for the quota right now.
Yeah, there is farmland in Crimea. You are not going to find cattle land in Crimea. It's rice fields and sugar beet.
And again, remember, since the Crimea is a bit of a, although I actually find the land price in Crimea shockingly affordable, but I look at things in terms of like a guy who'd want to have like a little cabin there or something. I don't know, man. Again, that's because it's a hot vacation spot. If you think about it, it's kind of like, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a cattle farm by Miami? You're kind of going into that realm. So the thing is, since you're married to a Russian citizen, she can buy really anything anywhere. But again, with this kind of thing, you got to think about the whole sort of region and like what Kevin was saying, since they only let 70 people, regardless of whether they're married to a Russian citizen or not, immigrate there. That's absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. And you might be have better luck doing something out east where the land is really, really cheap and it's more suited towards cattle. But again, you kind of have to have that immigration support. So,
yeah, I will clarify that, if you're married to a Russian woman and she's registered in Crimea, you have a good chance of getting a quota.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that certainly helps. All right. Well, here we're going to have the Boz come on. Hello, Boz. We always like to hear from you.
Hey, guys. It's Daniel. Real quick,
Hey, Daniel.
not a question, just two recommendations. Well, many people know I'm living here like 12 years now. My wife is Russian, and we met in upstate New York 22 years ago. First recommendation is what I did. I came here 2 times on a tourist visa, 2 weeks each time, just to see the town or the city that I wanted to live in. So if you have that opportunity just to come, and I know Christopher says this a lot too,
Yep.
come as a tourist, go to the area that you're interested in and see if you like it. You're either going to fall in love with it or you're not.
Yeah.
And
Okay, well, yeah, I can definitely. I think both of us can comment to that. In fact, Kevin, I think you've already mentioned that twice during this video that you would agree with that sort of logic, and I do too. You definitely, especially for the people again who are the family people, who already have the family, who are going to put a huge amount of personal risk in terms of like selling off their U.S. assets to come here, to which would essentially make them homeless if they ever couldn't build a life in Russia. You definitely want to get serious about that. It's a little bit different when you're a single guy with no attachments to anything in the world. It's like when I came, things are a little bit more flexible. But yeah, you definitely want to check things out because people, it's like I said, we've kind of talked about before, perception and reality are different. We just talked about how someone thought, wouldn't it be great to have a cattle ranch in the Crimea? You don't really do that. Wouldn't it be great to have a massive, many-acred ranch within driving distance to downtown Moscow? That doesn't exist, you know? So we've kind of talked about some of these examples of people can have an idea of something, but then the reality is different. Or it's like, you know, oh, cool, Moscow, it's this great city and this and that. And then you start living there and you're like, it's basically 50% of the United States or maybe more. I've done nothing. My life is exactly the same, only maybe a bit cheaper. And that's it, you know? And someone could be really disappointed, especially if they want to have this like spiritual Orthodox revival experience. You're not going to get it in Moscow. The women in Moscow, too, are also not going to be this, like, I'm going to be your trad wife and take care of you. They're going to be like, you owe me because I have an apartment in Moscow. You've got to kiss my butt for the rest of your life. You know, that's going to be their attitude. So, anyways, the Boz wants to continue. Boz, you had something more to say?
Yeah, my second recommendation, because I noticed a lot in your chats, Tim, that people are asking questions constantly about, you know, the immigration process. Listen, guys. You know, I've done it all. I've had the 3 months, the 3 year. I've had the temporary residency. I had the permanent residency, and now I'm waiting for citizenship. It's different. You can go to MVED, immigration in Moscow, or you can go into Moscow Oblast, or you can go down south, and you're going to get a different answer. And it depends on the agent, you know, because some agent might want one document, and in another location they don't want it.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is just pick what area you want to live, go and visit it, and then find a good immigration lawyer. Because let me tell you, in the last 3 years, the laws have changed so much. But and they change, and then even after a few months, you go there, and that office doesn't even know about it. So you have to go there with the printed law to show them.
Mm-hmm.
So. All I can do is
you're the boss. Well, I just don't mean to be a jerk and interrupt you, but what you said is, if you see a new law or something, you should print it out so you can show them because they don't know.
That's what I do.
That's another huge difference between American and Russian bureaucracy. In America, they sort of like update people or whatever. Nope. The employees don't get trained, my friend. The person behind the desk is behind the desk because they're behind the desk, and that's it. So
bring every possible document you have. Never just bring everything you have. You might not need it all, and it's happened to me. Yeah. But my wife is Russian. We do a lot of research, and we go there with printed, showing them the new laws because a lot of times they don't even know about it.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
So the best thing.
Bring everything. You know, man, I've had to show off a couple times my college diploma. What does that have to do with anything other than, I guess, you could say, I'm an educated person, so I'm not going to commit as much crime as someone who didn't graduate high school. But still, like, I don't know. I think that's a very iffy metric in terms of, especially because if anyone was a spy, they'd have a college education. Do you think there's someone who dropped out of 10th grade and got into the spy game? You know, just food for thought, Russian government. Food for thought if you're listening.
But one positive note before I hang up. From 12 years ago until now, it's like night and day. If I told you what I had to do 12 years ago to apply for my temporary residency, forget about it. I don't even want to tell you. But now it's it's updated. You have machines, you get tickets, you have a line. It's really, I mean, it's, at least in Moscow. The last
That's what
12
Kevin was
years,
mentioning earlier. That's a Moscow factor. Apparently, that is not a Crimea factor. Well, it's
That is
in
not a
Simferopol,
Crimea
maybe.
factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, guys, I wish everyone good luck and God bless you. And I'm in Moscow. If somebody's coming here, traveling, and you follow Tim, write me private, and I can try to help you however I can.
All right, very
So-
good. Well, we'll try to help you as best we can too. I'm going to meet
So to
you now.
kind of-
Unfortunately, sometimes, Kevin, though, my ability to help people is very limited because, again, the real problem that people actually face about coming to Russia, now it's difficult to move assets, be they physical or financial. That sucks. Okay, yeah, that is bad. But the real difficulty is the migration bureaucracy. That is the real barrier. That's the killer.
And this is something, kind of relates to what Daniel was saying, is if you come here ahead of time and you get to know the lay of the land, it also gives you the opportunity to meet the immigration officials.
Yeah.
I met our head of immigration probably 4 or 5 years before we actually moved here. And it helps to know them. You aren't going to find a good immigration lawyer in Crimea to begin with. It's not an area that attracts such businesses.
Yeah.
We
That's Moscow,
have
St.
the
Petersburg.
relationships with them. We keep up on the laws, but even in the 3 years since I first applied, the rules have changed almost monthly.
Yeah, they do. A lot of little nuances. But unfortunately, they don't ever change in like a grandiose sort of way that just like a sweeping reform that would make things a little bit more logical. Everything is very incremental. And that's why one thing we have to maybe have some mercy for the government employees, because for those of you who are familiar with the game Warhammer, I believe there's up to 10 editions. And the thing is, I started playing the game when I was in 2nd edition. And then each edition of the game is literally different than the other ones. I mean, some of them are similar, but essentially you get in this thing of you're like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, there's so many of these different versions, and now we're up to 10, and I have to sort of like wipe my mind clean, because the 10th and 9th and 10th are really different from when I played when I was a kid, and you have to like completely wipe your mind of everything that was there and then completely rewrite your mind to this completely new system. And the human brain has its limits, so we should have a little bit of sympathy for these employees if they weren't so hideously rude to everyone. So anyways, did anyone else have any questions? Oh, I didn't even check written questions. So if someone raises their hand, that's awesome. You can use the raise your hand function to talk to us. If there are no large amounts of written questions, then we're probably going to get out of here. Oh, boy, there's 32 new messages. Oh, boy. Here we go. Can't hear Kevin every 10th word coming through. Well, I could hear him. So anyways, that's the main thing that matters. Okay. The thing is with the recording, it'll be fine. Because OBS has nice, those slider things or whatever they are. What are the monitors? I don't know. You can monitor the audio coming in. You can see it bouncing. You wouldn't want a woman who marries your money, though, would not hurt, because the women can be attractive. Kind of, but some people are very happy with a marriage that is a lot more transactional, and in Russia, I would say that's a lot more normal. If that's something that someone wants to do, they can do that, but you have to bring big bucks, it's not unbelievable to get an attractive woman unless you're selling yourself short. It depends what you define attractive as. I'm going to, yes, it's not that was in the United States. Something about women. Oh, boy. I wouldn't know. Something about the debt clock. Tim, I would like to ask a question. Okay, here we go. We've got Leo coming on. Hello, Leo. What's up?
Hey, Leo.
Last question. We can't hear you. Neither of us can hear you. I have your volume at maximum. Nothing. Leo, where are you? You wanted to ask. Where are you? Daniel even wrote in the chat, number 1, please come and visit first. 2, hire an immigration lawyer in the region you want to live. Yeah, you really, really should. And I understand that someone might look at that and be like, but that's like $1,000. It's so worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Leo,
Yep.
you said you wanted to talk, and yet you are not here. Maybe could you, if you can't, if there's something wrong with your microphone, could you maybe slap the keyboard there or your touch screen and shoot out a real quick written question before we go? That would be amazing. Let's see. I don't think. Leos, are you there? You're not going to come on. Well, anyways, maybe Leo's voice will appear in the background. Maybe one of his questions will appear somewhere. But yeah, Kevin, I guess in summation, just to be first off, I'd like to thank you for your time to discuss some of these issues. I'd like to apologize to you again.
My pleasure.
Because what? Did you hear
My
something?
pleasure.
Oh, and about that, I guess again is with this whole American Village thing, and that it's like, guys, like if you can find some sort of route to Russia, like Daniel just described about visiting somewhere, getting with an immigration lawyer, and putting together some kind of plan to doing it intentional, do it if you can. But with the American Village, until we break ground, don't do anything. If that's what you're relying on. If you have some other means to come here, be it setting up your own business to pay yourself, being it some sort of like getting a college diploma, be it some other form of like trickeration, yeah, go nuts. You really should do that while it's still possible, but you can't just show up here. So anyways, Kevin, final thoughts, and then we're going to bail. I don't see anything from Leo, and neither written. He says I couldn't get his microphone working. Well, you could have written your question. Oh, wait, hold on. We have some support for Leo. Hello, Chantel is back, but I have a feeling this is going to be from Leo. Hello? Chantel?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear
I
me
can.
now?
Okay. I was thinking that, I mean, it's a little bit mystifying to me that you said you'd rather have a single investor and you wouldn't want to have the actual. I mean, here's my thing. Wouldn't you get more support by people who have their skin in the game, who want to be part of the community, rather than some guy who's got money to throw around and just wants money out of the deal?
Okay. Have you ever talked to the Moscow regional government and asked them what they want? You know? Or we're going to have to play. So here's the thing. Okay. So I could have, I'll bring it back on. Don't worry. I'll bring it back on. So I could have an investor come in and pay, and actually maybe even best case scenario, get this thing ready to be an entire sort of like functioning city, basically in one fell swoop. Okay. And also from the standpoint of taxation, we know where the money's going to come from. We know where it's going. We're going to have all the checks and all that, so we could show the Russian equivalent of the IRS. Or we could try to just gather money from people, and I'm going to be getting extremely large sums of money from overseas, essentially deposited into my account or into an entrepreneurial account, and try and have to explain that to the government. You see, that's the issue, is that, like, it's not that easy, especially during, like, a time of war. If you somehow randomly get, a few 100,000 rubles come from somewhere, no one asks any questions. They don't care. But if they see that my salary or earnings went from N level, and all of a sudden it's into like a few $100,000 that all came from overseas, it's not
Tim's
so easy.
CIA.
What?
Yeah. Tim is CIA at that point.
Yeah. So I mean, we can do that, and I'm willing to take that risk and deal with the consequences of that. But again, this is it. If we were to look at this as if Russia is run by some sort of dictatorship, where if Russia was run by a magic dictatorship, that means that everyone in the tax office would know that I'm Tim and I have this project, and if the money goes to that project, don't touch me. Or if they did try to touch me, the governor would call and say, oh, no, step off. This is legit. But that's not the case. We live in a Western-style democracy here, which means all these government departments are separate. And when the tax services attack me, it'll probably take 3 or 4 months, and maybe sometimes sitting in the slammer, for me to get out of it. I'm ready to take that risk, but that also means that then I'm going to have to hire an entire sort of like accounting department to deal with this. Whereas if we just get one investor to handle all of this, then there's no accounting, really. It's a much different proposition, and it's a much different way of going into this in terms of like who's owning what and this, that, and the other, right? So anyways, you can come back on, Leo. Did that sort of answer your question there?
I understand your point. There's something that I'm not familiar with. It's called an escrow account. It's handled by a bank, and it's for the purpose of defining what monies are going to whom and what and where. And I'm thinking if you just came under a bank, maybe they would have all the relationships with the proper authorities to be able to assure them they don't need to waste their time on the issue.
Oh man. I don't know. That's the first time I've ever heard of that from a Russian standpoint. Well, I've had an escrow account in Russia to use for 5 minutes before I actually bought each property that I have. But, man, it's just
set up your corporate and get that escrow account, and it's all out in the open, fully regulated. You don't have to worry about going to jail.
No, it's not, this isn't like America. People don't trust each other, man. I don't know. That's another thing. Is it's like that's not really giving the Moscow regional government what they want in terms of like getting this thing built. They really would much rather see a contractor. Because they can just go, this looks like the corruption hole is getting filled. That's like what you're talking about is like the absolute last, most desperate step to do things. But again, you have to remember that the government here is pessimistic about everything you do. So that's why, I don't know, I just much rather start to actually build a deal with a real, legit, that type of company and run all of these sort of payments, through them or whatever. I don't know. I don't.
Why don't you do a project manager or something like that? And in other words, if you're just not into that level of organization, I mean, you're obviously an ideas man. But if you need somebody who can really sink their teeth into that, like a bean counter or something, who could help things move along, maybe that's what you.
The problem is again, who would you hire? There's no one to do it. Like, you have to sort of know someone for a lot of years to do that, man. Like, you can't, like, okay, this is America. In America, you could sort of hire anyone and expect them to do that. In Russia, you can't. It's just...
All right. One more idea and I'm done.
All right.
What if someone who wants to be part of the village, they could be Russian or American, but they actually want to do it, they themselves are also happen to be qualified to handle these types of transactions, maybe make them, as one of the people to help you.
Well, that's even harder to find. You know what I mean? Like, the people we have are the people that have been doing this are the people I know. I mean, like, I can go back and talk to the other people I'm doing this with, but, like... I don't know, man. That's living in a world where accountants aren't lonely women who weren't capable of doing anything else with their lives. Like, there aren't hotshot accountants in Russia. So,
all right. Well,
yeah. So I mean, I don't know. The chances of the money getting stolen are so high, like crazy high. In that instance, I don't know. That's really, I don't know.
Personal picture of Russian society. Do you realize that?
That's how it is, man. Dude, that's why the concept of individual entrepreneurship exists. Do it for yourself. Do everything yourself. That's why those programs exist. Don't trust anybody.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Mm-hmm. Like, again, this is also responsibility. Okay, let me just put it this way. If I have the choice to hire an accountant that I don't know to do the American Village versus just give up, giving up would actually probably be the better, much more moral option. because there's no chance of people having their lives ruined. You see what I mean?
Tim,
What?
don't be the pessimist that you complain about.
That's being very realistic. I don't know. Have you ever worked with any accountants in here? Have you ever done business here? Have you ever run a business here? I have.
Not there. Here
I've
am.
been fucked over hard, man.
Yeah.
I had an agreement with one guy to produce, we'll just say widgets. And I was told that he's going to fuck you. As soon as the project actually starts, he's going to triple the price or do something like that. And I was like, no, there's no way. We have an agreement. He increased the price that I quoted him by 2.5 times the day the project started to show me this. I'm the only one that can produce your product now. Eat shit. So I've had that happen to me. Dude.
What was it I guess it was in a contract, a legally enforceable contract?
Of course not. There are no contracts in Russia. They're also not enforceable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there you go.
Yeah.
Would you just do me a favor, read that thing that I wrote, and just for some ideas? And some of your answers have already come through this little conversation.
Yeah.
But I thought it might be something worth looking into.
Well, there's a lot of preamble there, man. I see what you're trying to do, that we could do this by gathering money. Okay, like I said, if I can find someone that I can actually trust to do this, then maybe. But it's again, like, I don't know. It'd be so much easier and financially safer for everyone to have a big investor come in and just do the whole thing, or at least one street of it, or something like that.
Well, yeah, you'd have to be incremental and kind of targeted depending on how you laid out the plan. I'll tell you, Kevin, I'll volunteer Kevin. He'll do everything right.
I don't know, Kevin. Have you done accounting? I don't know.
Hey, I've learned to do accounting here out of necessity because you hire contractors here, and if you don't keep an accounting, they will tell you, I spent 100,000 rubles on this hammer and you didn't pay me for it, and I can pull out a receipt and say, well, you spent 800 rubles on it and I paid you for it. So it's like Tim says, you can't trust anybody here.
When it comes to business.
Yeah,
business of people you don't know. That people you don't know.
Yeah, people you know are okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I don't know. Like, I get. I'm gonna put the mute on here, but again, I get what you're trying to say, and that maybe I shouldn't be so pessimistic. But it's like, I don't know, the idea of, again, so you'd have to find someone who not only is more like an accountant, but is also some sort of like crypto expert. I don't know. This is one thing. Maybe I could talk to like Marcus from Let's Russia, because he's really good at that stuff. But I don't know. I'd really rather first exhaust all the options of all potential investors and then get into that, because with the investors, it's just sort of a two-party deal. The government's going to oversee it, and it's going to be awesome. Once we go into this sort of like organic mode, and I don't know if they're going to release the land under those circumstances either, because I don't know if they're going to really then trust that something's actually going to get built. So there you go. What benefits will the investor get? Profit. That's it. So sorry I got angry, but so essentially one of my big dreams in Russia was this one business that I ran that was profitable, but ultimately it wound up that I had to produce everything myself, the physical materials and stuff like that. So rather than paying someone to do it, I wound up having to real quick learn this sort of technology and start doing it out of the apartment. And of course, things were not done because there's the learning curve and all that. And it's like, I don't want to repeat that mistake ever again. So, yeah, I don't know. You guys, if you do start to learn Russian, you should really look up a channel called Stroy Hlam. I know the guy who runs it, and they talk about some of the worst construction scandals in Russia, be they an individual house or something bigger. And the thing is, if you could really read it or like get actually start to understand it, you can see there's the real trend there. But anyways, Kevin, I think we're about done. Sorry we kind of ended on a dark note there. Again, just to be clear, I'm not completely excluding the idea of hiring my own sort of like accountant or something, but it could be bad. It could be real bad.
I told you I'd help you with anything. I won't help you with that.
Nah, yeah, that's for someone. That's for someone else. So, but anyways, man, it was a really good talking to you. We're gonna hit the road here. I'm gonna actually in 3, 2, 1 stop the recording.